Hello everyone, and it's really nice to be here and not quite so nice being up here, but nonetheless. Thank you for the
microphone is working, so
Thank you for the invitation. It's working.
Is that working?
And naturally I share in the acknowledgement of the traditional owners and of all the people who've gone before us in this land. Who's been to see Newstead House? I expected that. You know, you really don't need me, do you? But that's fine. But there are 3 people in this room, actually 4 people in this room, who know Newstead House so well, and I really want to acknowledge them first because I'll be calling on them during this process. Friends of Newstead House is an extraordinary organisation which has been working loving Newstead House since the 1970s. And with us, as we have very often at this event, we have Patricia, who's the current president. We have Robin and Sandy's partner, because they come as a pair. You know, you get one along, you get them both. They are so generous and knowledgeable about this beautiful place and have worked so hard to get us to where we are today, which is what I call we have our house back. So when you have been at Newstead House, you may have seen downstairs in the underground corridor the beautiful stonework, but also really beautiful storyboards which talk about the history, and they're beautifully done, and they give you really strong information about what the house is and where it's come from. What we've done now is just started the work of getting the storyboards completed up to this date by having the talk about the restoration, because lots of people are really interested in it. So we're working through them to have some new storyboards for the future. Vicky will come for some money. No, not at all. But Vicky Howard was, how many years, Vicky, were you on that board?
A few.
You were, yeah. So have our house back. And thank you, Marcus. We'll see how we go. They're not all the dates that are important. We all know the house was built in the 1840s, originally by the family who then lived for a short time, and then more people came through. But the historical aspects celebrated at the house are particularly around the period of the Harris family, where it was, as quoted in the local media, and we always trust the local media, as the social centre of the city of Brisbane. So that's that 1860, 1890, I keep looking for affirmation over here, 1860s to 1890s period, and it's a living museum. This is a place where people come to see what a house was like. So we want it to be welcoming. So why am I here? I'm never sure. But in terms of the Newstead House, it is the only historical place in Queensland that has its own Act of Parliament. And it's a pretty short act. I think it's 3 paragraphs. But it's well worth your while to have a read of the debate around the introduction of this Bill of Parliament in 1939, because everyone was in agreement. It wasn't a long debate, but everyone was in agreement because they wanted to protect the place. Because you can imagine just then in 39 and now how much that hump of land is worth. And people were eyeing it off, but to our immense joy and gratitude, the Pollies in 1939 made a good decision, and they wanted to keep Newstead House alive. So they created a trust which is made up of the government of the day, the City Council of Brisbane of the day, and the Royal Historical Association of the day. And every 4 years there's a documentation that has to go to Parliament, be signed off by Parliament, to see who will be the representatives to be on that trust for the next period. I was appointed in 2020 and the House closed. I don't know whether that was a coincidence or not, but it was in 2020, and that was because of COVID. Everyone talks about the house being closed from 21 for the restoration process, but in fact it was closed from 2020. So it's a very long time since Brisbane had its house. And have a read if you do. I love reading old debates, but if you read about it, there was really strong agreement. And one guy was really hopeful that it would turn into something which I envisage a bit like the Jundarian Woolshed. Have you been to the Jundarian Woolshed? Yep. Toowoomba, yeah. They actually have, he thought there could be lots of historical machinery all through the park. I'm pleased that didn't happen. So we get through That is the content of the renovation that we had. It's important that people know that the house was not falling down. It was not derelict, it just needed some love. And that love came with a significant price tag. So that's a list of what was done in particular. The number one thing, I think, was the roof tiling. I was chatting with some of the people in open house, and some of the architects were outraged by the fact that at some time in the past, the Welsh tiles, the actual slate tiling, was replaced by concrete tiles for all the right reasons. They were long-lasting, they weren't easily damaged, but they were wrong. And so one of the core things was to restore the roof, and I've got lots of pictures to show you about that. Drainage, look where it is. It needs drainage, and drainage is important, so there's a lot of work done there. There's beautiful stone, and people love stone, and quite specific work was done making sure the stone was retouched, solid, anything was fixed in that space. Timber, the veranda, all these will be shown in slides, but I'm not going to talk about, I'm going to go through those. The veranda needed love. It was a timber veranda in Brisbane. It needed to be done. Also in terms of the wonderful balustrading around the house, which is truly beautiful. And I love the colour scheme. And that's what the next slide will show that. But exterior and interior finishes, we had a lot of research about what was going on. Repainting. The number one question, and it will come on the next slide, is why is Newstead House blue? That is the number one question, and I'll come back to that. Interior wall treatment, special painting. The way the paintwork is done is quite specialised, the way that in historical houses. So I had a 54-minute discussion with the painter about the different way the paint strokes had to go on and the way the paint had to be done, and he was so passionate about it. Interior timber floor and the lighting. This is something which is most people wouldn't understand, because the lighting was standard lighting. But to a conservation process in a museum, you need a special kind of lighting, which was softer, and they're now on stands. That caused a particular problem when we were putting the house back together, because the big bases of the stands, and you would understand this remembering how it went, took so much more space on the floor space that we were having trouble fitting in the furniture because of this new lighting. Memo: measure the base of the lighting before you actually buy that lighting. But it's absolutely the best lighting, but it's been an issue. Why is it blue? And we've only had one complaint, and I don't know whether we've had more that you've heard of. No, one complaint, doesn't like it, but she went all over radio. The blue, we had over 60 samples taken, and there's a special panel at the house now that explains that, the research that went into saying that this is a traditional paint scheme, and it was true to the era. And Harris, the Harris period, he was a bit of an entrepreneur. He had shipping lines, he had a number of mines, mostly failing, but he had lots of money, and then he had not a lot of money. And yes, he was an interesting man, but he loved the house. And he had ships that went into the Malayan areas, and this blue is reminiscent of the Asian painting that was very popular with the Victorians. So there's a whole panel about that. I was told by someone that at one of the visitors a couple of weeks ago, a young couple so loved this colour scheme that they went straight to Bunnings to try and match it in the renovation they were doing with their own homes. So in my opinion, success. They're just some before pictures, memories, and you can see the dark drapes that are no longer there, and just the house. This is reinforcing the fact that the house was solid and very beautiful, and people loved it, and we have not changed this too much. We've kept the spirit of the house. That's more after shots about what it looks like now. One of these things are supposed to be pointers, but anyway, these lovely little signs that you can see around there, they're absolutely beautiful as well, and they just give a little story to catch the image of what's going on. There's some of the images that are already downstairs on the storyboard showing historical scenes of the house. That wedding photo astounds me. That was one of the Harris daughters. I don't know how she breathed through the whole wedding service, but she obviously did. But what a stunner. And it goes through the different times and the World War II history. As with most big places in Brisbane during World War II, it was part of the war effort, and it was taken over by a special group of people that did photography, I think. But nonetheless, they used to have dances, and there you had a couple of the interaction between the local young gals and the American soldiers. And we've got no more photos, which probably was a good idea. That's a bit of an idea about the structure and the way it was set up. And you can see that Harris structure is not very much changed in the actual physical structure of the house today. That's a bit of the working. And Marcus, can we play a video? There's a video there. Can that be played? I'm allergic to technology, so I'll go back. Apparently there's a video that you can press on that one to show that the roofing tiles. Can that work? Oh, yes. Love this. I mean, it's a bit like a 1920s film, isn't it? But nonetheless, you get an idea of the work that was involved. The company that was actually in charge of doing the roofing tiles won the National Award for Heritage Architecture for their work on Newstead House. Can you believe how proud they are? But I'm just showing that because I like the way it goes. But it shows you how much work and how many workers were involved. One of the things that absolutely astounded me was the relationship between the workers from all the different skills that were required to do this, all those things we had on the slide before, how much they committed their work and themselves personally to the job. They loved the place and they actually worked outside hours. They did all kinds of things. That shows it actually rained during the work. That is the inside of the roof, showing the kinds of things that had to come off, removing the concrete tiles, making sure all that scaffolding was correct, and then the physical basis of laying all the new tiles. And they are the beautiful Welsh slate tiles, some of which we got from Somerville House, which had done a similar restoration quite recently. There were some tiles left over, so we acquired them. I don't know how. Don't want to know. And others we had to import from Wales because it's getting the quality of slate tiling. There's a lot of slate tiling that now comes from China, but we really wanted to get very similar to the original construction, the Welsh ones. I am trying to find out exactly how many tiles. I wasn't able to get that information before today, but I think people want to know that. How many tiles had to be taken down? That's downstairs in the dungeon, and it shows the kind of the stonework that had to happen there and the particular brickwork that was done. This balustrading on the outside, it's all timber. Each panel was taken off, individually fixed and maintained and repainted all the way around the building. And they had special painters who were heritage painters that did it. That colour scheme, you saw the blue, that grey and white is just perfect with the house. I have to admit, when I first saw when I give you these pictures to show you what it could look like, I was thinking, how's that going to go? But now that I've seen it, I can't imagine it any other way. And there was quite a bit of damage to the timber because it's timber in a Queensland home that hadn't been painted for a long time. And that's been done, and the painter took me through almost balustrade, but anyway. That's the veranda, which needed help because it's so beautiful. I love that veranda, when you wander around, and there's no better place to sit and look down the reach of the river than on that veranda. And it had to be all looked at. A lot of it had to be replaced, not too much, but some of it had to be replaced and also repainted. There's 3 levels of special painting that's been done on that veranda. There we are, the colour studies. That's what you can see when they were doing the heritage work, to see the colour studies of the outside. And now the interior finishes. There's a lot of slides here, and this was a work of heritage investigation, love, and a lot of money. Because what people found was when they were doing work, they took the tops off, and that's not the official term, and they could see the... Oh, and by the way, I should tell you, is it Theodore? What's the name of that beast? No, I'm looking at who... McTaggart. McTaggart is the name of the beast. I can assure you the beast is there. He hasn't gone back up, and that's not my personal aversion. But no, it's the beast will return. It's sitting there waiting for return. Lots of kids remember McTaggart when they travelled. What we found was when so many people came back, they talked about when they came as school kids. McTaggart they remembered. And also some convict fingers, which we don't have any longer. Thank the Lord. It's gone to the Royal Historical Association. I don't think they display them either. But, you know, every child, not every child, but so many people who came on the opening day who were quite mature were remembering their school trips, and they remembered the fingers. So, but what they found is that they could find what the original wallpaper patterns were. And they scraped and they looked at it and then screen printed it and came up with what the actual screen of the original, or at least that one of the original wallpaperings were. So what we did was, what the people who knew what they were doing did, was actually screen print these, get the colour schemes, painstakingly recreated the patterns, and had them remade at a specialist wallpaper company in Melbourne. Great idea. I love that one. I love the green one. I think it's called Grapevine Wallpaper, and that sits up, installed. Sandy, help me out because you were there. That was being done 2 days before it opened. Yeah, we got the ordered the wallpaper. They went to Melbourne, waiting. Some came. We had 2 heritage professional wallpaper men, wonderful guys who came and sat at the house waiting to put it up. And of course we had to wait for it to arrive, and the first lot came and it was beautiful. The second lot came, it was beautiful. Third lot waiting, week before official opening, arrived. But it did arrive. Interior finishes, all of this. For people who are in the interests of heritage, this is fascinating stuff about how it all works. And the professional people who worked on it were superb. Again, and that's probably my favourite. And it was done not as this part of the renovation. It was there from 2005. I love that one. I call it Snuggle Pot and Cuddle Pie. It's not, but I love it. And it's in the main bedroom, where, by the way, with that main bedroom, on the morning of the opening, Sandy produced pillows from her own home, which are still there. I presume you've got more at home, Sandy, but nonetheless, they're still there. More on downstairs. This is where we say it's the servants' quarters. Whether, you know, all the servants didn't live in this house because Harris had so many, but we actually take this, and the kids love it, looking at upstairs, downstairs. I'm terrified that it's probably where my ancestors were, not upstairs, but, you know, I live in hope. But nonetheless, it's beautifully done, and again, recreating what it was like to be a real home, a house. It's a living museum. And repainted, the brickwork checked. None of those fireplaces are operational. We had the fire brigade in the other day doing some practising, and one of the questions they asked was whether they were operational. I think it was a joke. Now here, this is probably one of my favourite slides. It's probably look a bit different when we have it up. When you need to renovate a house, you need to empty it. We have over 6,000, and probably, I think, more, individual pieces in Newstead House. So the Museum of Brisbane, the wonderful Museum of Brisbane, actually were the people who did the de-accessioning, and then we're looking at the whatever happens now. I'm still trying to get details, Vicky, from the Museum of Brisbane of how many people worked on it, but there would have been at least 20. They worked over several weeks, a couple of months, and they packed over 500 boxes. And I'm wanting to get those actual figures to get sense of what it's again. They're the people working on it, individually identifying and wrapping each item, putting it in the right box so then we could find them and then put stuff back. And we haven't got anywhere near unpacking all the boxes. We did have a couple of little issues with the signage on the boxes not being what we thought they were, but nonetheless we got them there, and what you see in Newstead House today may not be the same in the future, but what we're doing is trying to make it again something that you'll enjoy the experience and see how the people live. But we had very tiny items all the way up to McTaggart size items. That was the opening event. We think, because we didn't take official count on that day because we were too busy and scared and hoping it was all going to work, but indications of over 2,000 people we think came, and it was a wonderful, wonderful day, and people came from all round to be part of the official opening. The Governor, as always, was exquisite. And her partner, Professor Nemo, has got a particular interest because he's done a lot of work on the history of Government House. And we may or may not, we think Newstead House could have been in the running to be Government House, we know when they were looking for a suitable place to be Government House. And the wonderful home that they live in now, of course, got the nod. Professor Nemo said probably that was a good choice, and I didn't disagree with him on the day, but he is fascinated in architecture, even though his own profession is medical. So he was asking really detailed questions, wasn't he, about all kinds of things. I immediately ran away and got Sandy to talk to him. And it went extremely well. There's the official photograph of everyone smiling, and we had lots of different photographs. The trust that was put in place in 2020 was I was put on by Minister Leanne Enoch. Dean Prangley represents the Royal Historical Association, and in that first trust, Tracy Davis was the representative of the City Council. There's been a new trust appointed this year for the next term, and I've kept the gig. I don't know, I'm very pleased about it. I was very happy, and I'll go on about that, to keep going. Dean has maintained the Royal Historical process, and Councillor Kim Marks is now the councillor who's representing the City Council. So in that photo you can see the people all smiling, and a great big ribbon which was cut, which we're very pleased about it. When I also involved with the Bar Calden Workers Heritage Centre, and we had an opening last year of some renovation that was done there. And someone thought it was a good idea to have the sash that was there cut with shears because, you know, Workers' Heritage Centre and historical and all that stuff. Do you know how hard it is to cut ribbon with shears? Yeah, actually, the Premier did that one, Anastasia, and she was not happy. But we managed to get it through, but we won't do that again. So there we are. These are some points of interest. I just wanted to point out, we've got a lot of these, but the beautiful piano. Has anyone been to the house since it was opened, been to a tour? What happens is, over the years, the collection grows. Lots of people offer things. Not everything is appropriate, and we now have an official how you acquire items and how you unacquire items, and we've got to go through that in some way. But some of the most joyous, wonderful things, and I just grabbed these, and you may or may not agree with my choice, friends, but that piano only came this year. 1821, the most exquisite piano, and the way this reads, and you probably can't see it at the back, is manufactured by Collard and Collard. What makes this piano unique is that the strings are vertical as opposed to the cross-diagonal stringing on modern upright pianos. It's also a mirror, and this terrifies me, that the person who's playing the piano is sitting looking like you're being in a bloody hairdresser. You know, you're staring at yourself the whole time. But on the day of the official opening, we had this wonderful young man who played the piano all day, and it just added to the atmosphere. So, and that was donated by the Hughes family. There's a very proud Mrs. Hughes. And it just came this year and came from her home, and her family were not interested, and that came from the Royal Historical Association. They contacted Dean and said, we'd be very interested, but we know somewhere that would suit. Handy connection, having him on the board of the trust. The dining room table, I know the family, the Newlove family, beautiful dining room table, chairs. Also, the family gave all the napery, so the beautiful tablecloths and serviettes and all those things. So when you see that table set up, it is so beautiful. And we've already had one person, Dean actually, had a dinner there to see how it all worked, bringing someone in as a caterer and all that thing, and it worked beautifully, and the photographs were wonderful. And this wardrobe, which doesn't come up well, you know, this is in terms of presentation, we'll get better slides. I love this wardrobe. It's enormous. And it came from Woody Point, a lady called Mrs. Gill, did anyone meet Mrs. Gill? I'm looking over at the friends. Did we ever meet Mrs. Gill? But this wardrobe's enormous, and it's made of, and I quote, blackwood, cedar, tulip wood with kangaroo and emu figures carved above the central drawers. We think about 1875. And it's been restored, and there's so many people who take part in maintaining things like this. So as we led to the opening, there was a wonderful man who is a timber specialist and came and oiled all the beautiful furniture and made it, this thing glows now. It's a thing of genuine beauty, and it has a little emu and a little kangaroo carved into it. Again, children love it. But it came from a boarding house. So, you know, that gem is there. Now, is it Pren? I call it the pink thing. A pern, that pink thing. It's a beautiful glass, and the reason I love it, and it's sitting on the dining room table at the moment, is Clem Jones gave it. And Clem, who was not known for his traditional love of historical things, he was one of the men who looked into the future, loved Newstead House, and there's some pictures of him there as Lord Mayor, but he gave that. And I'm going to mention one more thing because it interests me, is that when you look at Newstead House, you might see that all those palms, which are not native palms at all, but it's an avenue of them at the time when it was a major precinct, and it's almost complete, and when you think about it and just think of people coming down, going underneath it, it's quite extensive. And that's the end of my slides. In terms of what we want to do next, we have the house. There's so much work to do. There's so much potential in this place. We are unashamedly open for business. The school tours have started, and will now hundreds of school children go through that place. And as we found out, people remember their trips to Newstead House, so that's wonderful. We're open for any tours, so anyone who knows touring groups, come. The current opening hours are Friday and Sunday, and as required, you know, we can come at another time if you book a tour. Since it opened, we've had the opening day, the 2 days of open house. Over the 2 days of open house, over 1,500 people came to Newstead House. And you have to come to Newstead House. It's easy to get to, good public transport, but you have to come there. So people came and they loved it. And we're also open for corporate events, because one of the things that's happened is there's no way 3 people from the City Council, the state government and the Royal Historical Association can run a house. So now we have a formal contract with City Parklands, who are going to be the people who manage the house. Decisions have to be made by us, God help them, but they are wonderful. They have been so cooperative and professional. City Parklands, as you know, have Victoria Park, South Bank and Roma Street Gardens as part of their portfolio. Now it includes our place. We are the only house, so there's a bit of learning going on as how you operate a house. But we always want it to be welcoming. We also want it to be a place where people love to come. I've got all kinds of ideas. One of the things I want is to bring all the weddings, all the brides of Newstead House back and get their mementos, because there have been thousands of weddings that have been based around Newstead House, photographs, even some inside. We're open for that. But also lunches and things like that, because we want people to come. The second most often asked question, apart from why is it blue, is when are the Devonshire teas coming back? And thank you, where's Desley? I'm looking for Desley, for your kind consideration of having Devonshire tea here this afternoon, because people remember the Devonshire teas, and it's a different world. You can't just go with volunteers, as so many people did for so long. We have to have some kind of contract. But I assure you, Devonshire teas are coming back. I myself don't like them. I like Victoria sponges, I don't know. But we're going to get people sitting on that veranda laughing and talking and looking at the view, because that's what happened at Newstead House. Now, I'm looking over to the friends. Come on up. I want to have a comment from you guys before we finish, and then any questions, they'll help you. No, any questions, we're happy to answer. But these women, and there are men friends as well, but these women are the life and soul of Newstead House, and we couldn't operate without them. So would either of you like to add anything, or you just be receptacles of knowledge that will answer any questions?
Well, where do we start?
You've got to go there.
Okay, you start.
Oh.
Okay, to start with, between us we've probably got something like, 50 years?
Probably, yeah.
About 50 years at Newstead. I'm well over 23 or 4, and Robin's...
Almost 30, yeah.
Yeah, Robin's nearly 30 years of working there. So we absolutely love the place. We both volunteer every week, and we are at the moment training the new volunteers who have joined us from City Parklands, and they're wonderful too. They're enjoying it, and they're gaining in confidence. It is a big job to do it, because sometimes we have up to 20 people arrive to be on a small group to go through the house. That's a small group to go through the house, and to be suddenly put in front of 20 people to actually describe the house and everything else can be a little bit nerve-wracking. But anyway, we enjoy it. If there's any questions that we can help answer, please let us know. But let Robin just say something first.
Any questions?
There used to be concerts.
Yes. Is that also in the...
At the moment, it hasn't come up. I think it used to be once a month.
Yeah,
Once
quite
a month,
often.
yes.
In fact, the person who organised that, it was actually her family who was part of the concerts. She's now
Just
moved on.
stay on the microphone, because we don't want to lose your valuable information.
Those concerts were actually organised by Jennifer, who's not with us anymore. She has moved on to a different position, but her family was involved in the concerts. And that's why they were so popular and so successful, and hopefully they will come back.
In the precinct, the house is part of the trust. The actual precinct is council, and those gardeners are absolutely magic. Again, they care so much. I was there Monday and they were replanting something and they love it so much. But when you go around the precinct, it's an historical precinct. There's all kinds of memorials and things in there, including one thing that talks about the flood history, Vicky, where you can actually see in the park, in past floods, where it's gone to. So the whole thing is an experience. We want people to experience the whole region, because it's all together, and that's that feeling that we're wanting to maintain. Again, reinforcing that partnership that involves the Newstead House. I think there's some things where we're wanting to have people doing map tours around the place to see all the little memorials that are in that area, including the fabulous tree that was put there to commemorate Frances Bedford. The Queensland Women's Historical Association was based at the house in the 50s and 60s until they got their own Maigunya. And there's a number of little signs around the precinct about women who were so important in that. And there's a tree, well, it's a replacement tree. The original tree, don't know how it was going to die because Frances wouldn't have liked it at all if that tree had gone. But the Brisbane City Council gardeners found a beautiful tree to replace it with. So in the next couple of months, we're hoping to have another event there, a smaller event with the Women's Historical Association because we're sister organisations. Sandy's been volunteering while she had some leave of absence from Newstead. She's been volunteering at Maigunya and we're not letting her go from Maigunya either, so it's going to be very busy for her. But in terms of the process, to have a new commemoration to the new tree so that it shows that history maintaining in the space. Also, you would have seen, and I don't know how to get this back, Marcus, but that opening shot of Newstead House has a little fountain out the front. It's beautiful, and all the brides get their photo taken near that little fountain. But there's a special, 2 men maintain that fountain. As contractors, they get the contract to it. Look at that beautiful shoot there. They actually brought that specially for the opening and now it's a permanent, whatever it is. Anyone who's a horticulturalist know much better than I. But they were there 3 times before it opened to ensure that that fountain looked just right. And that's, I just reinforce how much people put much over and beyond any kind of commercial, professional relationship. They cared about the place and they wanted it to be perfect.
Let's give them a huge round of applause. Thank you, Claire, for your wonderful, entertaining, informative and educational talk this afternoon. I feel like walking past this afternoon just for one more little look and feel like that it's part of us and I know a little bit more about it. Thank you so much and please accept this as a token of our appreciation.
And that, where's Jerry?